Utah, give me 2.
Hey, give me 2, you sons of bitches. How you doing? I'm Michael Govier. That's Phil Goyette. Ben will be here momentarily. Life is challenging. You all know that. It's so good to be back here. I missed the show last week. Phil and Ben did a hell of a job. Round of applause to those guys. Last week's show was stellar. And if you missed it, go back and watch it on our YouTube at any time you want to or on your preferred podcast platform. Phil, if you were rating your performance last week out of 5 stars, how many stars would you give yourself?
Probably solid 3-ish. I think Absolutely. I forgot all the key podcast stuff where you're supposed to introduce the name of the show and how you can follow the show and all those good
Not
stuff.
At this point of the year. Not this at this time of year, the diehards are the only ones that are left. If it's April, I would agree.
Yeah.
But September, only the people that are still trying to win their leagues or that just love the show so much, and there are a few of you psychos out there. But yeah, I thought you guys did a great job, and you really do have I hadn't thought about it much, but you actually have a really solid voice. You have a comforting, enjoyable voice to listen to, because I listened to the podcast version later on, and I like listening to Phil's voice. I think everybody else would agree.
Thank you very much.
Phil's getting shy here. This is too much praise.
Makes me a little tingly, actually, to hear that. So that's good.
Makes me feel kind of funny. Like when I used to
we're just talking about the Aaron Judge thing pre-show, and I pulled up Baseball Reference, and his adjusted OPS plus this season is 204.
Wow.
So you were saying maybe it was one of the greatest offensive seasons all time, and the OPS plus adjusted should rank it relative to league.
Yep.
To the offensive environment, which hasn't been good this year. So I think you might have a solid argument there. And now I want to look up the historical ops plus adjusted leaderboard, but
I wish I want to give the person the person who said it on Twitter, I want to give them credit for that. I don't know who it was, so if you see this or hear this, I'll give you credit just to remind me. Ben is here. Welcome, Benjamin. Nice to have you on the show. Sorry we started without you. I was just on a tighter schedule, that's all. I apologize.
I get that. I had something come up right at 3:57. So, it's just the way things work sometimes. And
that's just
sometimes
the way
you got to just handle that stuff and deal with it. So thanks for heading off.
Changes.
All right. So yes, Ben is here. Me and Phil. The first time 3 of us have done a show. Has it been a while since the draft show?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. You can go back and watch that. If you want to see how these guys did on their mock draft results for the MLB draft of 2022, you can see that on the YouTube channel. Guys, if you still haven't reviewed the show, we'd love to get a quick review. It helps the show grow. That's all I have to say about that. So let's talk today about players. Minor league players, all kinds of call-ups. It's September now, so everybody who can get called up. It's not like the old days, though, folks. It's not like the glory days. 40-man rosters. You got 12 guys on a bench. Man, Ben, remember those days?
I do. It was, playing fantasy baseball at that time, it was kind of a mess because that was playoff time, and you never knew if your player was actually going to play, if your pitcher was going to actually start that day, or even worse, if you had, let's say you had, back when he was at his best, so Justin Verlander going in September, he might get pulled after 5 because they had 17 rookies that were hanging out in the bullpen, and they wanted to kind of keep him fresh because Detroit's chasing down, back when they were actually good enough to do this, they were chasing down a pennant, and they wanted to have him fresh except, when October came around. So they'd have rookies coming in and pitching for 4 innings. Well, those rookies would, of course, be rookies, and so they'd give up the stinking game, and you'd lose your Justin Verlander win after he had pitched 5 shutout innings. And that happened so many times to me in fantasy in September that, there's a reason I remember this well. So, 28-man rosters. The other thing to very, very quickly notice, all this time counts as service time. And so that has changed. It used to be where when they got called up in September, none of that counted as service time. And so that all just looped over, and they could be up during September, and you could get called up forever in September and never accrue a day of major league service time, which is both good and bad. It was kind of a crap. It was a way the owners kind of skirted away paying players for for time accrued when it came to arbitration, but it was also a way that players ended up kind of losing their players ended up staying eligible for the rookie of the year the next year too, because they'd come up in like August and they'd get just shy of the rookie level, and then September would hit and they'd be safe for the next year. And so they'd end up on I remember like Dansby Swanson ended up like on a rookie list one year, and he had been up for almost 2 months because he had like 140 at bats or something like that, and he needed 145 or something like that. It was something goofy where somehow he just barely was still a prospect. But anyway.
What's this mean? Is Ben in a better mood? Did I miss something?
Crappy Ben.
Oh. Was this in the
Ben,
Discord?
aren't you like German Irish or something though? We should not be surprised if Ben's temper
I'm
goes
German
off.
Irish, which means don't ever get into a drinking contest with me.
Of course, yes. I don't know what Christian's referring to there, but Christian, good to see you, my friend.
No,
he doesn't have the one Irish hollow leg. He's got 2 hollow legs, an Irish one.
It's the Burleson, Alec Burleson getting called up, and I made a snarky remark to Christian posted that in the Discord, and I made a snarky remark that, oh goody, more people that basically can play first base, DH, and corner outfield in St. Louis. Yay! So.
That's funny. Helmut's here. What's up, Helmut? Good to see you, my friend.
Helmut, what's going on, man?
How about Wesneski last night?
Yeah. I could swear we talked about him on the show. We definitely had to talk about him on the show preseason.
I'm stumped. That's a new name to me. I don't know everything.
Well, he was one of the guys that got traded to the Cubs from the Yankees, and he is the definition of their sweeping slider that they've been teaching in the Yankee system. Not a great fastball guy, not a really great anything else, but that sweeping slider is a freaking mess to hit, and he is so good with it. And
wow,
you give him a time through a lineup, which I mean that can be, if he does it right, that can be 3 innings, but for certainly he can give you 1 to 2 innings, no problem in a bullpen. And boy, that slider, if he's really got it going, he can even give you a couple times through a lineup with it without getting touched. But he's probably not a legit starter. Regardless, that's a guy that, as a long reliever, I mean, that's a big piece. I mean, that's a legit piece. So,
Hayden Wesneski on the Cubs, 24 years old, 6'3", 210-pound righty. He struck out 8 batters in 5 innings. That is a fine debut. So clearly somebody I need to, I always feel like I know so much, and then there's always a name. It's like, oh boy, there's a new name. I don't know that name. Can't know them all, but it's good to keep tabs on these guys, and that's what we're trying to do here today. I wanted to talk about not just Wesneski. We got to talk about Triston Casas. He hit his first major league home run last night. Let me ask you this, Phil. He looks, that picture I posted here on our graphic for the show, man, he looks like a veteran slugger. He doesn't look, he's like a man-child. I mean, he is huge.
Yeah, body's not going to age well, I wouldn't think.
Oh.
So that's one thing you got to worry about. So get him in the lineup now if you got him in Dynasty. But he should be fine for,
Would you want to
5,
move him in
6 years,
Dynasty?
I would
Or do
say.
you see him as a power source for the next,
Yeah, I like him. He should play frequently because he should get on base, worst case scenario. He doesn't have as much swing and miss as you would expect from a big slugger type. He's got a lot of raw power. Doesn't always get to it in the game because his approach can be limiting on it, especially how he sets up at the plate, how he thinks about covering the plate, and his patience. So, but yeah, I like the kid. I think he should play a lot. I'm kind of hoping against hope that maybe he gets a couple little games at third base, enough for fantasy, which is something they toyed with in the minors. But I just, as you noted, based on his build, you can't really see it happening.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. That's totally fair, and I would love to see that too, because Rafael Devers has been a nightmare. He's been a real bummer for a lot of people. Big complaints on Twitter about Devers over the last 6 weeks. He just hasn't been able to do anything, and he's a better player than he's produced. So I'm not sweating that. it's just always nice to get corner infielders who can give you the dual eligibility. So I'd root for that as well. But the other part of this,
another guy with a body that's not great. So
yeah, that's a good. Okay, interesting. Well, I hadn't thought about it like that for Devers. Ben, I want to know, what does this mean for Bobby Dahlbeck's future now with the Red Sox? Does he maybe get dealt at some point, or is he just going to have to get another shot as a DH or first baseman if there's an injury?
Maybe you should start pitching again. I don't know.
Ooh,
He was a really good pitcher in college, but
Bobby Dahlbeck, the pitcher.
Yeah, well, no, he is your great example of a guy who's a 3 true outcomes guy that forgot how to do one of the outcomes. He can strike out and he can hit a home run. He really can't walk. And that really hurts a 3 true outcome guy because you need to do all 3 of them. I mean, Adam Dunn would not have lasted very long in the league if he didn't walk 100 and whatever times a year. You know, you can't, I mean, I don't care if you're hitting 40 bombs. You can't strike out 200 times in a year if you're not also walking 100 times, you know, and teams will live with a low batting average if you're getting on base at a 350 to 400 clip. But when you're not, they're not going to put up with that. And Dahlbeck's a great example of that. So
beautiful message. There's a message right there. That's important.
I think he's my projection. My projection. He's probably like the next starting third baseman for the Doosan Bears in Korea. He just has a KBO profile. 27 years old. All he can do is hit the ball really hard. Go to Korea. Maybe you can figure it out for 3 years.
So, you know, with Casas, the guy who I really like, you want to get a good physical comp, absolute peak. If he does everything right, that's a Goldie comp. Like body, you know, Goldie is like, if you do everything right, Goldie has that body. But Goldie has done hard work to keep that body never aging badly out of that body. He came up with that body and has stayed at that body. Most guys that come up with that mature big body add weight to it, add size, add whatever to it. If people would take lessons from what Goldie has done, and Goldie came up late for a prospect, 25, or I don't remember, you know, to have to look that up, but he was 24, 25 when he debuted, which, you know, he's now 35 or so. So folks are starting to say, oh, geez, he's got to be winding down, but, you know, here he is competing for a triple crown. But that's why is the guy does great work keeping his body at that level. I mean, he's no fitness model, but he's not really decreased in his fitness and in his shape ever since he's been in the league. So,
Jose Abreu comes to mind too.
Yep.
Lost. He actually lost a little bit of weight, I think, which has helped him out. So actually, Casas' game is sort of in a way like Abreu's because he's a big guy, but he makes a decent amount of contacts. Abreu doesn't take as many walks as Casas does, but
okay. Is Casas
thinking about comps?
Is he a 300 hitter of the bigs? Probably not. Not like Abreu. I mean, Abreu hasn't always hit 300, but he's a 290 guy.
I would say Abreu's had his years of 250 and his years of 300. I think that's probably more like what Casas would do, is a guy who's probably count on him for 250, 260, and every now and then he's going to pop out a 300 on you and really make you a happy owner. I mean, that's the type when he's really on, he is a streaky average hitter, but he's always going to give you power.
Okay. We're live here at the Palazzo Podcast, Prospects Power Half Hour, 2 L's, 2 Z's on Twitter.
Utah.
And, of course, you can follow us on the Discord. Is free. There's a link at the top of the Twitter feed that you can click on and become part of the Discord fun. We got football, too, so if you want to talk football, we've added channels for that. You pretty much talk about whatever you want. It's really just a state of mind, man. Palazzo, it's a state of mind, man. So that's all I'm going to say about that. All right, let's talk about some other players. There were some other players on the tip of your tongue. I know that we wanted to talk about Toglia, Mr. Mike Toglia, the Colorado Rockies. Did you guys cover him last week on the show or not?
No, I don't think we wound up talking about him. He popped into my mind because he smashed a homer today when I was scrolling on Twitter before the show. And then the Rockies were talking about Talia's Tacos is going to be kind of
it's
the
Talia.
catchphrase for his home.
Talia.
Yeah, Talia. I think he says it.
Silent
G.
G.
The G is silent. So
Soft
Talia's
G.
Tacos. Yeah.
Yeah. When he came up, he was one of only 4 guys in the minors at that time who had 30 home runs. So now I think there's like a dozen guys who've reached that milestone. But when he did come up at that time, he was one of only 4 in the minors who had hit 30. And he's a switch hitter. I mean, I was impressed. No, the Braves for some reason went out to Oakland and had forgotten how to pitch. I mean, Strider struggled today. Wright really struggled yesterday. I don't know what the heck happened there, but
Wright burned a lot of people in DFS yesterday.
Oh my gosh, yeah. But against Colorado, those guys could do no wrong. And Talia he maybe didn't have a great average as he came out of that series, but if you watch his at-bats, he took very good at-bats against a really good starting rotation that he was facing in that series. For a debut series for a call-up, that's a tough one to run into for your first series is, hey, here's Kyle Wright, here's Spencer Strider, and here's Charlie Morton. So try to face those 3 as your first 3 major league pitchers you're going to face. You're going to face Morton's curve, Strider's fastball, and then what Wright has been able to do this year. Holy crap. Well, I guess you'll decide if you can hit major league pitching for sure. And he did. I mean, he did very well. And then he came, switched sides a few times to face guys like Tyler Matzik and AJ Minter, and did, once again, the batting average doesn't show that he was putting up great hit or that he got safe hits, but he was putting up good at bats every time. And that's a big deal. And he had some loud outs. He really hit the ball a few times that shut up the Atlanta crowd, so all of a sudden you hear just silence over the crowd and the ball gets caught on the warning track. That everyone in the crowd heard how loud that ball came off the bat. So
I look at his minor league numbers, and yes, he cranked 23 bombs at AA in less than 100 games, but his WRC plus over the long haul here, it doesn't really hover on I'm talking bigger stretches too, by the way, not tiny samples.
Yeah.
His biggest sample sizes, it seems to hover around 110 to 115. So it seems like, is there anything else here besides power, or will something else develop with him?
No, he's probably power, and then in an OBP league, you give him a bump.
Yep.
But as a switch hitter, he could compile, so that's something to keep in mind. And I think the Rockies will use him in the outfield a little bit. So it might be, one of these first base outfield guys that gets 550, 600 plate appearances. And if you do that and you play half your games at Coors, you're probably hitting 30 home runs if you're Michael Talia. So,
oh my God, I can't believe I've hit the button once.
Coors.
There it is. Good God. Sorry, everybody. Sorry about that. Boy, I'm rusty, aren't I? That's pathetic. Coors.
Coors.
Yeah, and then we also got this one, too.
Coors.
Yeah.
This right here is a silver bullet, all the way from Colorado.
All the way from Colorado. Baby Billy. And so Talia is a guy that I'm not that excited about, but he is young. He was a first-round pick in 2019, too, so there's a pedigree there, and he can grow into something. I'm not waving from the rooftops about him, but sure, why not? Take a shot. I also want to talk about Spencer Steer, who I think is really exciting, and I know that Ben likes Spencer Steer because he came from the Twins system, and now he's a Red, part of the Tyler Mahle deal. Twins really got kind of hosed on that one. They didn't really get much in return this year because of Mahle's shoulder, which has provided 5 innings, 3 innings.
Although, they ended up calling up a guy who then set a new record today. Well, I guess a kind of a record. Louis Varland came up today and his first strikeout was Aaron Judge, so that's a good way to start your career.
Yeah.
Went 7 strikeouts in 5 or 6 innings. I don't remember which one it was, but the most strikeouts for a rookie making his debut in Yankee Stadium since Louis Tiant in 1964. So
wow,
that's a pretty notable deal. And so he came into Mahle's rotation spot is the only reason why that comes in. But Steer, I've compared him, I think, on the Discord a couple hundred times now to Jose Miranda. He really is.
Yeah.
They're very, very similar players. you're going to get the ability to play short out of Miranda. You're going to get more walks out of Spencer Steer. That's pretty much your difference. You really have very, very similar players other than that. The thing I like a lot about Steer is you put Miranda into Cincinnati's ballpark and his numbers are going to be really impressive. So Steer in that ballpark could have some definitely fantasy worthy numbers.
Yes. Phil, anything to add to that?
I was surprised by his power output. I guess I didn't realize he had as much pop as he does, but it looks like a consistent above 200 ISO. And he's hit about 25 home runs between all stops this year. AA, AAA, changing systems, now making an MLB debut. So I think I like the potential consistency of the power bat too. So
right?
Yep,
yeah, his stats.
And he's probably a guy people aren't going to know a lot about either. So
yeah, I brought him up on a DFS show I do for FTN yesterday, and I heard crickets. I predicted him to hit a home run, do a home run call for DFS. Didn't happen yesterday for Spencer Steer. I thought it might against Wade Miley. I don't know why I said like that, Wade Miley. I sound like I'm Australian trying to speak English. Really poorly, but what I do know... Oh, somebody always told me there was a phrase you could say if you said it directly in English that it would sound Australian, like
you want to do it?
Light.
You want to do it?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
You say rise up lights.
Rise up lights. Rise up lights. Rise up lights. Oh my God, that's cool. Rise up lights.
Rise up lights. I don't know
Rise
why my
up
kids
lights.
like doing. I don't know why my kids like doing Australian accents, so we do them all the time. Curly fries is a good one.
That's
Curly
fun.
fries.
Give me 2.
But actually, I'm in this mode right now.
There's a shark in the water.
Okay. Maybe this is recency bias, but I think if I'm picking between the two Spencers right now, I kind of think I want to go Steer in Dynasty over Torkelson. Tell me I'm crazy. Tell me why I'm crazy. Anybody here?
Ooh. I still believe in Torque long term, but
too.
I gotta say, if I'm wanting to win next year, if I'm not on like a 3-year plan, which, let's be honest, unless you really know your league is going to be around for 3 years, nobody should ever be on more than a 2-year plan in a dynasty league, because most dynasty leagues fold pretty quickly. So regardless, but if you're on more than a 2-year plan, I can respect that, because Torque, I think, is going to take a year or two I think 2023 is going to kind of be his gather year. And then I think you're going to see that. I think he's going to be that guy starting in 24, but
it's recency bias.
I think everyone expected him to do what he did in college from the moment he got into the pros, and he just
Go Tigers.
Yeah, he needed some time. And frankly, when you surround a guy at Arizona State with a hell of a lot of hitting, and it's just like, okay, now go do what you do. And he did, because everywhere around him was a good hitter. And then you bring him up to the Tigers, and it's like, all right, we're going to start a whole bunch of 180 hitters around you. Maybe one of them will hit above the Mendoza line, and you get in the middle of that lineup and try and do something. Somehow,
that's not how they were describing things preseason. That's really funny. They weren't talking about the Tigers like that in spring training. It was different.
Yeah, this is true. So,
I feel like this might be stupid, but I feel like Torkelson needs to get more like mean or angry, or you know what I mean, like have some kind of chip on his. I saw him talking the other day on an interview, and he was so like, "Aw, shucks." Well, I just gotta kind of figure things out. And,
something like this.
Yeah.
Let it out, man.
He just needs to get pissed off at people.
I want like Albert Bell. That's my
my
ideal.
Wow.
I don't know if I've got a guy in the cleanup spot. I want it to be Albert Bell in the cleanup spot. So
that's intense. I don't know if anybody should be Albert Bell.
It's like I'm gonna hit the baseball or someone, but
We need more time.
Albert Bell in today's world. Yeah, more Albert Bell in the social media age. That would have been quite a scene. I will say that. We had a couple minutes left here on the Palazzo Podcast Prospects Power Half Hour. Ben, anybody else you wanted to bring up here that we haven't discussed in terms of recent call-ups? You mentioned your Minnesota boy. We've talked about Casas. We talked about Talia. Who else would you like to mention?
Well, I was watching today. Ken Waldichuk with the A's came up, and he's pitched a pretty solid game against the Braves, and they've got a I like to think that they've got a pretty solid lineup, but he's a lefty, and you can see why it works for him because gosh darn, he darn near touches his elbow to the middle of his back on every pitch. That's got to be hard for a hitter to pick up. There's just that hitch in his delivery as he comes. And he's got legit stuff on top of that. But, man, that little hitch in the delivery where it's that hiding the ball that far back as it comes, boy, that's got to just throw a man off as he's trying to pick the ball up. I don't care if you're right-handed, left-handed, what you are. But that's one to watch. And he's thrown well so far for the A's since he's been up. So
lefty funk with a good changeup. Yep.
So
don't fake the funk on a nasty dunk.
There you go.
I learned that in the 90s. Yeah. So. But he came over in the deal for what's his face? JP Sears and Waldichuk came over in the deal for Montas. So the A's might have got quite a haul here, Phil.
Well, they got some good minors. Yeah.
Sorry. I think they did a good job on these dump trades they did this season. Really, all Langoliers should be a part for them. So
dump trades. That's funny.
It's Oakland, so they're good at it.
Yeah, they should have mastered it by now. You're right. But I just didn't know much about Waldichuk. I was following Sears as a Yankee. Waldichuk was newer to me, and I agree with what Ben said. And although he didn't get a lot of Ks today in his outing, he was able to minimize the walks and hits, which is always nice to see against an elite lineup like Atlanta's. And I think Waldichuk is a guy, first off, even in redraft, he was being added in Fab last Sunday fairly regularly. Somebody that, in fact, me and Eric Cross, the prospects guru himself, we added on our team that we co-manage. So if you want to follow someone like Eric who knows what he's talking about, add Waldichuk to your squad. Obviously, in Dynasty, he's already been a part of teams, but I think redraft value here is legitimate, and I just want people to be aware of that. Phil, last call. One more player you want to mention before we leave?
Let's talk Cade Cavalli, and, what do we see for him? I'm just with the horizon of next year. And do you guys think you're going to be happy with him or disappointed with him? I think, like, redraft, I would probably avoid next year. He's probably going to be too pricey, given the name value that is going to be attached to him, but he's still a rookie. And rookie pitchers generally are not a good bet, right? So a lot of times it either takes time for them to figure it out, or they figure it out, but they can't make it through the season. So.
But isn't Josiah Gray an example of a guy who you just know he's going to be an ace eventually, right? Like he has terrible whip outings and big blow up games, but his strikeouts are so massive and consistent. His stuff is so nasty that it's like a Lucas Giolito effect. I feel like a little less extreme than what Giolito went on, but that's just another example of a younger arm that you can see. Like this guy will be a stud in 3 years. It just most likely will happen.
Giolito's an interesting comp for him, for sure.
Yeah,
I can see with that.
Man, I would have liked to see him get 3-4 starts.
Cavalli,
this year because I think it'd be good to have him have something underneath his belt going into next year because I just don't know on a redraft how comfortable I am assigning anything to my league. On a redraft. It's just, he's going to be a guy who, once he gets there, he's going to be a definitely a consistent strikeout guy. He's got that kind of stuff. Now, is he going to be a consistent strikeout guy that gives you low 3 ERA with a 110 whip, or is he going to be a 4 ERA with a 130 whip. That's what you just don't know. And I'd sure like to have been able to watch how that stuff plays at the major league level a little bit more, because that's kind of where this year, moving up into the upper levels of the minors. I mean, last year he just tore through, but we also have to realize he tore through a ball to start with, and then hit the upper levels of the minors to end the season. Starting in the upper levels this year, it wasn't nearly as dominant. And you just kind of wonder how well that would have played as he got to the major league level. Are we looking at a guy? I mean, Josiah Gray has given up something like 30 home runs this year. That's something to think about. That stuff plays, but there's always the home run bugaboo. And I mean, is that going to leave him always to be that guy that, Roto, he's a solid guy. End of the year,
Edison Volquez,
he's got a, 350 ERA, 4 ERA, and he's a 125 to 130 whip. You can live with that. But a head-to-head, Cavalli could be a guy that blows up your entire week if that's the type of guy he is, that gives up 2-3 home runs at a start and can't get out of the second inning. So you just don't, like I said, I would have loved to see how that plays.
Do you think, Phil, any debate between Cavalli and Gray for you? Is it clearly Gray, or you want to see more from Cavalli at the major league level, dynasty-wise?
Oh, I prefer Cavalli. I think Gray's always going to have that home run problem. I think when he first came up, he was more of a sinker slider guy, and then at some point he added the 4-seamer. I might be getting that wrong, but I think that's correct. And I don't know, the 4-seamer's just not. I'm looking it up on Statcast now. It's just not great. It doesn't really do anything well. It doesn't get a lot of whiffs with it. His extension's not super with it. He's got an X slug on it over 600 now in each of the past 2 seasons. So I see him. He's going to get pounded. He's going to have those outings where he gets pounded. So the really big thing with him is he's got to really limit the walks. You can't afford to walk guys if you're going to have that profile.
That's a great point. Homers or walks? It's the death of any pitcher for sure. All right, real quickly, because we got to go. So speed round this from Helmut. For next show, can you give me a deep dive on Jonathan Perlaza of the Cubs, please? Stats look great, but no hype, and he's not on any list. Jonathan Perlaza for next week. Guys, lock that in.
Okay.
You guys have a job to do for next week.
We can do that. I think Phil brought up, which I think could be our great topic for next week, is starting to look forward into the offseason, because minor leagues end this week. Minor league regular seasons end this week. So we could get into FYPD tiers.
Yeah,
first-year player draft tiers, and start talking about those, because some folks, those that didn't do them in the summer, off-season is coming. Believe it or not, it's fall. Get your pumpkin spice latte and all that sort of thing,
Oh, God. Right now, Phil's laughing because he's not in America. So.
Oh, God.
Yeah, they don't. We don't have that here, actually. Yeah.
I know. You're a lucky bastard, man. Then real quickly here.
Apple cider. No.
Yes. A cider mill in the fall, that's heaven. Heaven, baby. Real quickly from Jamie, Ezekiel Duran or Spencer Steer, deep league rest of season? Yes or no? One or the other? Quickly.
Man. I would
playoff run here.
Steer for playing time. Just because, Duran has a bunch of other guys that he's competing with for day-to-day playing time.
Ballpark and playing time, right? Probably the two factors.
Yeah.
Maybe goes on a heater.
Yep.
How many years till Gray is at peak form, and how long? Well, we just kind of talked about that, Patrick. I think that's what we were discussing. So we will come back to this next week. That's called a teaser, folks. Yes, we're going to tease you into next week's show. It's the Plaza Podcast Prospects Power Half Hour. That's Benjamin Chase below me, Phil of Sports to the left. Follow Jen. Follow Ben on Twitter at Big Gentle Ben. I'm at MJ Govier. It's a Plaza Podcast. 2 L's, 2 Z's.
Utah.
That's how you follow us there. There's so much more in the hopper that I got to get us organized here, because there's so much to do. But until that day, we'll go back to the Discord. Take your conversations over that way. As Chad says, oh, fuck. Where was the warning? I thought you were still sick. Oh, I was sick last weekend. I was just sleeping last night. Man, my Discord confuses people. All right, we'll see you guys in the Discord. For Phil, Ben, and Michael Govier, we'll see ya.